They're going to explain what the project is, how the Custom-Made Stories Foundation links back to Bitcoin, of course, and what's going on in El Salvador. Any people in the audience, have you been to El Salvador before? Anyone made the pilgrimage, so to speak? Yeah, I've got a couple in the back there. Did you have a good time when you were there? Awesome, thumbs up, fantastic. I've been to El Salvador a couple of times, not just to surf, but also to take part in the Bitcoin stuff, and hopefully going back there next year. I would encourage you all to take a closer look at El Salvador. It is a country undergoing profound change, not just through Bitcoin. And it's really cool and refreshing to see that, particularly if, like me, you're a European and you're used to the doom, the gloom, and the downtrodden people that we always seem to come across in Europe. So my preamble is out of the way. I'm going to welcome to the stage now Jan and Glenn, who come from the Custom-Made Stories Foundation, for their talk this afternoon. So please put your hands together for Jan and Glenn.
Hello. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you to be here. And it's a pleasure for us to introduce to you the project we are working on with CMS Foundation. CMS Foundation is a foundation based in San Salvador, in the city of San Salvador, and work with the main project on the area of Colonia, Zacamil, and the Zacamil neighborhood. And the foundation is dedicated to the revitalizing of public space through a transformative approach. Is a new method that we try to use based on the fact that we strongly believe that art can be a strong point, a strong starting point to make a great change. Because we use art, first of all, for the creativity that art allows to use, but also like a Trojan horse, because art allows us to be present in some situation in which we are not fully inside. And then working with art, a lot of issues rise. So also if we start to work with an artistic approach, we understood at the beginning that we can stop there, because when you start to talk about art with a community and the idea that we have to create an open-air museum in the area of Zacamil, a lot of problems arise, and we start to talk with the people who live there, and we understood that art, of course, is something really interesting, something that have the possibility to change the life, especially on an aesthetic way, but there's people that today have a different problem. So we start from art, and then we find us to deal with social issues, to problems related to the condition of the area, to the condition of San Salvador today, that is really better than years ago, but there's a lot of work to do. And this is the reason why we are today to present our main project, the first project we are working on, that is called the Proyecto Zacamil, and is also the area in which we are working. And to work for the Project Zacamil, we started a new approach, totally different from the previous one we used to think about, called the regenerative placemaking. So is a kind of approach that work in a more multidisciplinary way. So we create a team based on, of course, artists, because we started everything there, but also on architect, urban designer, landscaper, filmmaker, and one of the most important figures of our team is the researcher. Because we start a strong dialogue with the people who live there to identify the most important problems, and after a long connection and a long collaboration with the people who live in the Zacamil neighborhood, we identify their problem, we propose some solution based on their way to see the future, because the most important thing for us is to create a project that is something related to their way to life. When we start to work in Zacamil, we found an area that, of course, are totally different from the place we are coming from, and has a different tradition, a different culture. And since Project Zacamil is based on a project that works on 5 square kilometers today, but with the hope to become bigger, we try not only to understand the problem that today are in the area, but also on the possible solution that the people who live in the Zacamil area want to see in their future. So after that, we start to make the connection between their needs, the people who live there, and our creative teams. And something magic happens because through a creative approach, the dialogue with the people start to be really interesting, and a lot of topics that usually maybe people don't tell to an stranger, with the magic of art, start to rise. And the foundation today has 5 key points, sorry for the slide, 5 key points that create the structure of our work. And first of all, there's the authenticity, because we strongly believe that when we approach a project on this dimension, it's impossible to do that without having a strong connection with the people who live there. So for us, the main goal is to remember every time that the people comes before the place. Our customer, if we can call like this, are the people who live there. So we have to have this always in our mind. The second key point is the co-creation is the base of our approach. Co-creation for us means both the possibility to work with the people who live there, as I said, to understand their needs, but also to have a team with many different creatives that can work together, that can share ideas together for a big project and for a great change. Another key point is, of course, the creativity, because coming from an artistic approach, creativity is the base of our work, but is also something that are not only related to art, but is a creative in general. Having a creative approach allows us to read the problem in a different way, because there's many realities that approach problems from an economic approach, for a social approach. We're trying to do this starting from creative. We strongly believe that the future will be in the hands of creative mind, and this is our mantra. A part of this, the last key points we have, and also the relation to be here today, is also the transparency, because as a foundation for us is something mandatory to be transparent on economy, of course. But what we are doing, and this is why I said that the researchers are a big part of our team, we try to transform in data the changing we are working on. So we have researchers that are working on the previous situation of the Zacamil area, that are studying the change in act today, that for the next year will follow our work to understand how big is the change, having number in our hands, because the main goal of this project is, of course, to change the daily life of the people who live in Colonia Zacamil in San Salvador, but at the same time to create something like a model to work in different areas, having, of course, the key point of authenticity. So the project change in every area in which we will go, have to deal with the tradition, but at the same time, working on Zacamil allows us to structure a team able to work on different areas of the world to make great change, having backside a demonstration that are not just our opinion, that the change is not only in our minds, but is something that the numbers can confirm. Now, since I think that maybe with some visual and some words by the protagonist of this project, so the people who live in Zacamil, we can better explain our project and what we did during the last year. We will show you a small teaser taken from the main documentary we are working on, and that will be able to tell what happens today in Colonia Zacamil. And so we will show you this little teaser, just 3 minutes, to better explain everything.
En El Salvador, el régimen de excepción fue declarado en respuesta a una escalada de violencia.
67 homicides in a single day.
El gobierno ha permitido la detención de 58,000 pandilleros.
War on gangs.
La Zacamil estaba marcada como zona roja, entonces peligrosísimo.
Yo estuve a puntito así de perder la vida, pero así.
Hubo muchas muertes por eso. Todo el entorno lo empujaba a los niños o jóvenes a pertenecer a X pandilla. Está un peligro ser joven.
Estamos acá para decidir cuáles deberían ser sus objetivos y sus sueños, pero al revés, ayudarlos a conseguirlos. Venimos de otros países, venimos de otras culturas.
Nosotros somos extranjeros que hemos llegado aquí y creemos saber, pero en realidad nosotros no sabemos nada de nada.
Cada quien está en su mundo, cada quien tiene su vida. Se aíslan.
Hemos visto muchas veces que dicen, miren, vamos a hacer eso, pero no pasa nada, ¿verdad?
Hay mucho egoísmo, hay mucho miedo indirecto, porque aunque ahorita ya no están las pandillas, entendemos que quedan traumas en las personas.
Hay otro problema, que la gente no quiere participar. Yo pienso que debería de cambiar la cultura de nosotros.
Art is like a Trojan horse. It triggers a psychological and emotional relationship between who's benefiting from a work and who's doing it.
Es romper con esa inercia y hacer uso de ese espacio, porque ese espacio les pertenece.
Arreglando espacios, la idea es que se rompan esas barreras.
La gente cuando decía Zacamil era miedo o era peligro. Ahora que diga Zacamil y que lo identifique con arte, con oportunidades, con talento juvenil.
¿Cómo construir ese sentido de comunidad, de relacionarte con las personas?
I leave the stage to Glenn Lazio. Thank you. Happy to see this reaction. I leave the stage to Glenn Lazio that will tell more in detail the project that we are developing in Zacamil, because Glenn passed a lot of time in Zacamil during the past year. Is the best person to speak about the details of the project.
All right, so after this beautiful and emotional video, I'm going to give a little bit of a historical background and theoretical framework for you to understand a bit better the situation we are dealing with and trying to address, and how we are going to go about it. As you see from this image, Zacamil is part of a larger housing development that began in El Salvador in the 50s and terminated in the 80s. And was born to face growing demand for low-income housing in urban areas in the city of El Salvador, but in urban places in general in El Salvador. It's based on an American project, a research from the University of Chicago that basically created ghettos across the Americas in the second half of the past century. In Zacamil, so El Salvador suffered a good 50 years of traumatic events, and specifically Zacamil right now is sort of connotated by a series of profound social issues. I'll read out just a few. We found, well, economic poverty, strong social tension, historical resentment, identity loss, cultural eradication, absence of education, abundant psychological trauma, abandonment by institutions, culture of violence and submission, severe degradation of public spaces, harsh climatic conditions, lack of space, overpopulation, and lack of opportunity, extremely poor conditions of existing structures and infrastructures. So I don't know if this is enough to paint a picture, but it's not exactly a wonderful one. The scope of the project, which is a placemaking project, is to provide better living conditions. So the end result should be an open-air museum, but how do we get to this open-air museum is creating the right ecosystem for this museum to exist. And the right ecosystem is the community within which will host this open-air museum. So in order to address this long list of things, might seem a bit utopistic and impossible. And I myself often indulge in tragic and pessimistic thoughts at night when I think about all this. But if we shift our attention from deliverable things, object structures, and we move it to processes, and we start investing in processes rather than in things, the light at the end of the tunnel starts to appear in a way. Things become a bit more, I wouldn't say simple, but attainable. Obviously, this all-encompassing approach rests on the belief of the analogy between a community and an ecosystem, or community and an organism, defined as mutually interconnected, independent systems. Let's say that the theoretical framework that drives the project is that of social ecological system theory, in which systems are defined as a relationship network of structures and processes. So a healthy and self-sustaining system is one in which processes produce structures that can be maintained or modified by the same processes which are in place, assuring thus the survival of the whole system on the long run. So speaking of an open air and public museum, what we're saying is it can only survive and it can only maintain itself if the system, also known the community in which it is, has a prosperous and dignified life, and will be able, therefore, to support it, change it, and maintain it in the future according to its evolution, and not to a superimposed idea of what it should become, how it should become. In order to reach these objectives, we've set up 4 integrated teams. The first one would be our social team. The social team conducts the research, it provides the theoretical backbone for the project, constantly keeps the pulse of the community, informs the design team on different issues, and makes sure that the sort of concepts of co-creation are maintained and carried through thoroughly throughout the project. The design team instead focuses on providing the backbone of, let's say, developing well-being, expressed through the various forms of capital that we've seen before. In particular, we've decided to begin addressing issues that have to do, which exacerbate social conflict. In the specific point in time, in the specific region, we are talking about mobility and parking, energy independence, connectivity, public lighting, trash collection and recycling, and water harvesting. Third would be the sort of more artistic team, the creative team. The artists involved, they are preoccupied with providing a more enjoyable environment from an emotional and psychological point of view, with a particular focus in recuperating identity and pride in a specific area associated with a strong stigma, as you've seen from the video before. We're trying to get rid of that stigma. And fourth but not least, it's the economy team, which right now is still in a phase of research and evaluation. And I take the opportunity to be on this stage to say to anybody who's interested to come up to us, to participate, or has ideas to come up to us later on during the day. It will be in charge of structuring the community-owned museum and aid the community in processes of economic emancipation. Because the museum is open air, because it's contemporary, we've found 3 basic values that are supposed to drive and accompany our processes: creativity, circularity, and decentralization. From this scheme, you also might start to understand why we're speaking here today and not somewhere else. Creativity. Creativity is the most important one. As Giacomo briefly touched upon it before, we're not talking about creativity in terms of painting, making art, making sculptures, but we're talking, according to Professor Franken, quote, creativity is defined as the tendency to generate and recognize ideas, alternatives, or possibilities that may be useful in solving problems, communicating with others, and entertaining ourselves and others. There are 3 main reasons why human beings tend to be creative. One is need for novel and complex stimulation. A second one would be the need to communicate abstract ideas, values, feelings, things that can't be technically addressed. And the third one is the need to solve problems, and that one is my favorite. That's, I believe, a very good lawyer is a super good creative person because they find solutions to problems in an unexpected way. The second core value would be decentralization, and I'm going to move a bit faster on this one. Decentralization because of the goals that are usually associated to decentralization in literature, which are participation. We're talking about alienated communities who are not, who, as I said before, they've been subject to violence, they've been subject to circumstances in which they didn't feel they could participate in the construction of their environment in their own personal life. We need to get participation back into the picture. Diversity plays an important role in decentralized systems, such as societies, ecosystems, and organizations. Efficiency is another one, and the fourth one would be conflict resolution. Decentralization, in many studies, is found to help prevent or reduce conflict because it reduces the actual distance between, the perception of inequalities, or the actual inequalities, in the distance between sort of a central government region and then the people who are subject to these inequalities. And then third one would be circularity. Circularity, why? Because we are dealing mainly with underprivileged communities, scarce resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's also a need. That's not just a contemporary value idea. There's a strong need for it. So yeah, now that I've sort of given a bit more of a rounded background, I will let Giacomo finish up the presentation. And he's going to talk to you about the larger community this project involves, because we are dealing with a community, as you see on the map, of about 4,000 people, 5 square kilometers. But this community belongs to a larger community, which is El Salvador, which in hand belongs to a larger community, which is humanity.
So we see how CMS are changing a place really distant from us, but not so distant. And I just want to finish this the speech to make something like a call to action, because I think that today here are present a lot of innovators and creative minds. And since we strongly believe in collaboration, and this project is really, really big, we did a lot of things, a lot of change are enacted since the last year, but we are a lot of things to do. And so our call to action is, if you have an idea, if you have something to propose us, something that can change the life of the people, and you want to start something like a little adoption, we are the right foundation to make this happen. And especially, and this is the reason why also we are here talking about San Salvador, and also the reason why we are in Salvador with the foundation, there's a growing ecosystem. So I think that could be really interesting to see what happens during the next 5, 6 years. And we need your help. We need the help of everybody that has a great idea and wants to test their project, because maybe we can find a solution to making up every project, maybe, together. So thank you, everybody, to be here with us today, also for a short time. I hope that we make something clear, also if time is running. But thank you, everybody, and I hope to see you again. We have also a room at the 4th floor of the Villa Ciani, in which you can find the same video we saw before, and we can talk together. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a nice day.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. And yes, as they mentioned, please do check out Villa Ciani, the 4th floor, where you can see some of their work, and hopefully it inspires you to maybe book a trip to El Salvador to see it in person.
Yeah, you'd better visit.
Thank you so much. Please give a round of applause again to Jan and Glenn. Thank you.